All right, we're back. This is the second part of the video for the first night. Um, one of the things I do every semester to keep all of the information that each class talks about is I go up into public_HTML and I make a new directory, mkdir, and I'm going to call this one summer 20 because that's when we're doing this stuff. To get into it, remember we use CD and SUMMER 20, and we hit the enter key. Space -L, nothing in it. I'm starting just as fresh as you guys are. There's nothing else in that yet, so we're going to have some fun filling it up over the semester. The first thing I want to do, because I know there's a template.txt in public_HTML, I am going to go copy. Now remember, when we CD to go down one level, we use two dots. Since I want to go down into public_HTML and grab the template file, I'm going to go ... and a / to say go down one directory. That's what the / means. And then pick up template, whoops, dot. It knows if I hit the tab key a couple times that there are two different templates there. So I'm going to do txt. And here in this brand new directory, I'm going to call it index.html. And if I ls -l now, I see that I've got a new file called index.html. And if I vim that, there I am again with all of my wonderful just some text. Again, just like before, I'm going to hit, no, I'm not. I'm going to leave it in command mode and hit the D key twice to get rid of just some text. I'm going to hit insert, and then we're going to open up the first of our PowerPoints. Now, I'm starting on slide 14 simply because I want to get with you guys live here in about 45 minutes. So we're going to run through this really quick and hopefully get everything I want done before I have to bring up a new meeting with everyone. So what I want to do here is I'm going to bring that up. Whoops. Never mind. I'll bring the other one up here. Now, a lot of the new web stuff is done with special programs that kind of write the code in just blocks of text and cursors and blocks of text and numbers, rather, not cursors, I'm sorry. But if you have a simple page, aren't we supposed to be sharing here? Yeah, there we go. If we have a simple page, we can either hit Control-U and see everything that's on that page, everything that's behind it, the stuff that makes it run. Or if you're used to the mouse, you can come out into the white space, right click, and view page source. Does the same thing. Coolest thing is up here in the URL, it says VIEW-source and a colon in front of the HTTP. If we get rid of that and hit the enter key, we're back to the original page and not the source code. So really cool stuff. And if you're curious about how somebody did something on a web page, it never hurts to try and use Control-U or right-click view page source to check it out and see what it looks like. Let's talk about the basics of a website. What I've done during the break is I copied the template.txt. Well, no, we did that first off, didn't we? So this is just the template. The only thing I've done is I've gotten rid of the just some text. Let's talk about what we need here, or what's going on up here. Now, I just erased the less than so that you could see what it looks like at the very top of the page. The doc type tells the browser this is what to expect in this document that you're reading. So doc type HTML. And notice on the slide right behind it that it is actually less than the exclamation point, DOCTYPE in caps, and then HTML in lowercase, and then the closing greater than. That must be there for every web page that you write. That's the first of 6 different things that will make it a standards compliant website. And we saw this already, basically. We don't need to look at that anymore. So after that, and after our honors pledge, we need to talk about the HTML tags. And the HTML tags are such that we open our HTML that tells the browser, hey, here's where I'm starting with the HTML code. We put one attribute, a modifier in that code, or with that tag rather, and that code says language equals English. And that is a correct HTML opening tag, and all the way down at the bottom is the closing HTML tag. Again, remember the closing tag in a container tag pair is the close has a /, the top leaning forward. And that's where it goes. At that point, we have 2 out of the 6 necessary requirements for a standards compliant web page. The next thing we need are the head and body tags. You can see there's the closing body tag. But remember, I mentioned it, I think, in the last video, where after we open and close the head, we open the body tag. And the closing body tag, as you saw just a moment ago, is right above the closing HTML tag. And the body is where all our cool stuff goes. Okay? So, as just a skeleton, that's what it looks like now. Again, doc type, the HTML tag, the head tag, the body tag makes it 4 out of the 6 requirements for a standard compliant HTML5 page. The next one is title. Remember the title, the mostest with the bestest? Well, the title appears inside the head. In fact, the next 2 required tags for a standards compliant HTML5 page is the title tag and the meta tag. The title is simply what you want to appear on this tab, or in old school browsers up in the blue area up here on the top. So it is definitely seen by the public, and it's also one that you need to make related to the content in your page. If you write some stupid web page and then you're actually trying to sell widgets, a lot of the search engines will look first for the title, and some of them may even use that as the content of your page. And nobody looking for a widget is going to click on the stupidest web page. Okay, so title's important. The last thing we've got is a meta tag. Now, meta tags are used for a lot of different things. The only thing we're going to use it for this semester is for the char set, to make sure the browser that's looking at our code is going to display things in UTF-8. And again, you can Google UTF-8 if you want you know, a more comprehensive explanation than that. It's really kind of beyond most of what we do. So again, this is 5 out of the 6, and then we add the meta tag, and the meta tag is 6 out of 6 items required for a standards compliant web page. This may not display anything to the screen except minimal web page in the title, in the tab, but it will pass the muster on all the accreditation boards. Now, head, body, inputs, HTML humor. You may not like it, but I thought it was hilarious. But then I'm old and my humor is slightly warped, I guess, by being old. So that was the first set of slides. Here are the second set. Now this is 2 and 3, and we're going to go through this a little quick, not too bad. My favorite definition of a computer is Michael Davies from Creighton. A computer is nothing more than a glorified bucket of sand. He's absolutely correct. And that's because all of the chips are made on silicon. I'm not going to read this because this says using the internet is a daily part of your life. Well, you guys know everything that's here, probably better than I do on some of the social media accounts. The difference between the internet and the World Wide Web is the internet is the hardware. The World Wide Web is both hardware and software, because you're going to have a piece of hardware called a web server, but you're also going to have a piece of software called a web server. And those two together are what utilizes the network backbone, the hardware that pushes all of these vast myriads of data across the world. World Wide Web is hardware and software. I just said that. Let's go to this. Apache is one of the most popular web server pieces of software out there. I don't know the numbers on it anymore. I knew it used to be way more than Windows, but I think Windows is coming up. This is what we do basically when we send a message over the web. We send, type in a search on, our Google browser. It sends it across the net. It's not a straight line, by the way, either. There are all kinds of hops and pings between various routers that go perhaps even all over the world. Wind up on the web server at unomaha.edu, for example. The web server processes the request and sends a request back through to us, wherever we are. I'm not going to read these. You all can read the dates of the history books. I will mention 1969 because I teach a class called Culture and History of Video Games in the fall. And 1969 was basically, it's one of the years that the founder of Atari was at the University of Utah. And that was where he was playing around with making a game called Space Warp, or actually kind of warping it from somebody else's. We can talk about that after class or sometime. So HTML5 stands for Hypertext Markup Language version 5. Basically, it's a description language that tells a browser how to display things on a screen. CSS is cascading style sheets. I could read this, but basically what CSS does, the words in a children's book are HTML5. They're the things that tell the story. And then CSS is the stuff in the children's book that makes it look pretty and keeps their attention on the page. By the way, CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. We're going to talk about Perl later on, so I'm going to skip this one. Software, hardware. Hardware is controlled by software. Software is in the instructions that you or someone else issued at the computer to make it do what you want it to do. Programming, what we're going to be doing hopefully for the rest of our lives, is the act of writing usable and useful software. Now the software we write is definitely going to be usable, but I don't know about how useful it is. We're not going to be writing the next World of Warcraft DLC. What we're going to be doing is writing code to practice on certain little bits of basically HTML or Perl commands. And you can take a look at this and know that we ain't doing any of it, as my old granddad would say. First of all, Flash, by the way, has gone the way of all flesh this year. So Flash is no longer available. I don't get to give my day-long rant about Flash websites anymore. So we're going to kill that. We're going to look at one more set here real quick. And this is just formatting text. Again, remember that in my opinion and most people's, HTML5 is all about the content, and the content is all about the words that you use to persuade people to stay on your website, to listen to your information, to buy your pizza or your widgets or whatever it is you're trying to sell on the web. We're going to talk about semantic tags, logic-based tags that give some meaning to the text that they're modifying. Some of those actually affect the way it looks style-wise, but we are going to be able to replace all of those in the future when we get it heavily into cascading style sheets. We have in every word processor from the very first one on the ability to bold and italicize words inside the word processor. Well, we also had the B tag and the I tag inside of HTML that allowed us to bold and italicize words. But now we've got a couple that are better. Strong is the same thing as bold, except it is going to make a screen reader for the blind behave differently when they encounter that particular tag. And M, emphasis, creates italicized text. Same thing again. And if you go to that first couple, 3 websites that I've got in my page, you'll be able to see these examples. I'm going to drop this in, but we're not going to do all of these today again because that first one took, oh my gosh, 6 hours or so. And then, oh, for crying out loud. We're not going to do that. I am not going to waste your time like this watching me type. I'm going to get rid of this. And CIST 1300. Wow. All right. It searched instead of going to it, but that's okay. So we're going to look for ODIN, unoma.edu, tilde, JBLACKMORE, / CIST 1300, and hit the enter key. Okay, so, all right, we already saw that one. It was just slightly different than the one we did. There we go. So we'll talk about this another time. Just, I made that doc type visible to help a student that was having difficulties. So what we've got here is the code. Paragraph strong, warning, the vocal rabbit may look harmless, but it can kill you with a single attack. Keep your distance. You have been warned. So this is strong. Inside of the strong, we've got an emphasis, which changes it to italicized. And then the rest of that sentence is another strong. I don't know why I put a period there. Keep your distance. You have been warned. And then the you have been warned is just emphasis. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about here real briefly, we did the bold, we did the italics. I'm not going to worry about that. Down here, whoops, in the paragraph, you may be able to see, there we go. You see it's got an italic tag, language equals LA, and we close it with a closing italics tag. Now this is I came, I saw, I conquered, but it's written here in Latin. So it's Veni Vidi Vici. That's what the language equals LA means. It tells them this is not incorrect. This is actually how it's done in Latin. And yes, there are other language tags for other languages, but that's another thing that we're going to save for a different class. Now, we have a site tag. And when we wrap the words wrecking ball in a cite tag, all it does is italicize them. That's like in the old days, we had to underline the titles of books or records or anything like that so that the printer would know that it would need to be italicized. Another one, there's the way that looks in terms of code. And again, remember with this page, you can always right-click, view page source, or Control U. Okay, and the red, ignore that for now. We'll talk about that on Thursday next week. Block quote is the one I prefer because we can use a site attribute in order to put in where it comes from. So here in a recent article in the New Yorker, Springsteen arrived, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If we view the page source again, the citation here will take us to the article, except we're viewing the source again. So if you want to, you can delete the view source and the colon, get to just the URL. And now in the New Yorker, yeah, go away. Now in the New Yorker, you see the entire article. Eventually, people are going to beg for money themselves out of business, I think. There's the, this is the Q. There's a Q tag. It stands for quote. And I'm going to tell you right now, so are you going to the concert is wrapped in Q tags. Of course I'm going is wrapped in Q tags. There's a very delicate difference there, and that is these are what they call smart quotes in Windows parlance. They're the ones that curve at the ends of the lines, kind of closing in the quotation mark. The mark is one of the dumbest tags I've ever seen. And that's because it does this. It does what all of those people in the used books that I used to buy as I was going through school, put yellow highlight mark it over the word. There's only, excuse me, there's only one reason that I could ever see to use a mark tag. And frankly, there's better CSS for that. And that would be if you were making a search engine and you wanted to highlight every instance of that word in your search results. Maybe I could see that. But don't use it. There are better ways to do this. The abbreviation tag with the title attribute, and again, we'll talk more about the title attribute next Thursday, allows us, the abbreviation tag itself just tells us that this is MIS. But if we wrap the abbreviation tags around IS and T with the title tag, it's hard to see it, but you can, down there in that toolbox or tooltip that just flashed out, it says information, science, and technology are all accredited by ABET. So again, if we view the page source real quick, there we go. So title is an attribute. It's a little word that modifies a tag, like the style tag I showed you earlier. So title equals information, science, and technology. That's how places like XKCD will pop up that little sarcastic tooltip when you hover over one of his web cartoons. So one of the things we need to do if we're using math or chemistry or something like that is sometimes we need to make superscript where it goes above the letters or subscript where it goes below the letters. And those are easy enough to do with just, superscript and subscript. Now, one of the things you're going to look at, or you should notice anyway, is that the space between these two lines and the lines below it are different. You get another about third of a line spacing when you use the subscript with the next line below it, or when you use a superscript with the line above it. Where else do we need to be here? Oh, let's just leave that open. What else do we got? And it can be a real pain in the butt. So what we're going to show you is insert, delete, and strike through. Again, all of these are better utilized in CSS, but at least you can tell how they used to work. So we're going to see this whole thing, including a block quote about Berlin taken from another website. So down here by the Best of Berlin under a site tags on CD for $19.99, but this has got the strike through, $4.99. Insert, now available on Spotify. Close the insert. Oh, and well, let's go see this. So I said we're going to do strike through, insert, and delete. Here's the delete. What does it do? It puts a line through the text like the strike through. And down here, here's the strike through. Two tags do the same thing. Welcome to the Wild West of early browsers. The Best of Berlin is a site, but the underline here is now available on Spotify. That looks like a link, right? Because it's there, it's underlined, and it's kind of saying, go to Spotify and buy this. But grandma can click on this for 100 years and it's never, ever going to take her to Spotify. Avoid tags that use underlines. Just, it's bad karma. Don't do it. I know it's not real karma, but it's bad Jeff karma. Now, code, on the other hand, allows us to put out a section of our website to look like it's in code. For example, the shebang line from Perl that we're going to talk about eventually is the pound symbol, the bang, /user/bin/Perl. And this, if we look at the code, is going to be wrapped in the code tag. The same thing with the ./program.perl and perl_prog.perl. In fact, this slide, where were we at? Yep, this one right here gives us an entire program. Now, this is using both pre-formatted and code, I believe. Yep. So pre-formatted allows us to put it in exactly as we want it to appear on the page. So if you count the spaces over from the HTML tag to here, you're going to have from the H to here the same number. User bin Perl, use strict, use warnings, print hello world. We're going to do something very, very similar when we get to Perl as our very first program. But this is a use of pre-formatted and code together. A lot of times you could do poetry, for example, with stanzas placed around the screen by using the pre-formatted code. Small is just what it sounds like. It shrinks the displayed words by about 25%. That's here. Note the red pill will allow you to stay in Wonderland. It is just slightly smaller than regular text. Again, there are better ways to do this with CSS, and frankly, that's what I think you should do. The break element, now this is HTML, XHTML, HTML4 if you would even, I think, use the /. But we don't need to do the / for the break. What the break does is if we put it on like this poem here, it's going to allow us to separate these sentences the way they were on his website. The paragraph tags, if we really do use a paragraph, but if we want to have a break in the middle of it for some reason, maybe one paragraph got too big, so he put a break in there, so it's 2 paragraphs, but in the same paragraph tag. Now, again, poetry is kind of a special thing on the web. One of the things we need to not do is do a lot of copy pasting. And I know that Bob wrote this slide and there's some problems with it, but I leave it because of those problems. Notice above us stars, beneath us constellations, 5 billion miles away, a galaxy dies like a snowflake falling on water, below us some farmer, etc., etc. So above us stars, beneath us constellations, 5 billion miles away, a galaxy dies like a snowflake falling on water, below us, Japanese or Chinese, hiragana maybe, katakana. This is, I think, either, well, Sanskrit, Arabic. I really couldn't tell you. Here's a couple more Japanese or Chinese characters. There's another one. What happens when we copy paste into websites is that we bring along, especially from things like Microsoft Word, we bring along invisible control characters, and the browsers don't really know how to deal with that. And so they can put things like foreign letters in there, you know, non-English letters, let's put it that way, or sometimes wingdings, you know, the ones that have symbols instead of words, fonts. So there's a lot of junk there. Just, you're always better off to type it than to ever copy paste. And it's hard to copy paste in Odin anyway. Now, in the rest of this slide, they talk about the span tag. We're going to do a couple more of these, but not until next time. There is an E.E. Cummings poem in here where instead of trying to use the pre-formatted tag, we were trying to use breaks and spaces and paragraphs and all those kind of things. So you might be able to walk through it and kind of take a look at it. It's not perfect, but it is another way that the old school kind of HTML writers would approach a problem like that. All right, that is it. That's the last of the lectures for today. So I am going to put things away. I'm going to start this one on its processing and hopefully see the rest of you folks here in about 15 minutes. Have a good night. Let's see. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Kind of interesting, trying to figure out exactly